Hello and welcome to This Is Scotland, the Q&A podcast. We like to call it the Half Pint with me, Ali Heather.
And me, Coinneach MacLeod. How you doing, Ali?
Oh, doing terrific. Actually, because we do the big podcasts on the Monday, we have to do so much planning and thinking about them. And then on these midweek podcasts, we literally just go into the mailbag, pull out a bunch of the great questions we get in. I just get a wee mug of coffee sat here and we just get a good old chit chat. I actually love these, they're so fun. And we've got loads of great questions. The team at the Scots magazine asked a few of our influencer friends to submit some questions, and we got some crackers. I'd like to start, if you don't mind, with our fellow columnist from the Scots magazine, Rebecca Gibson. She's a great sort of nature writer. She's an expert on bird life. She writes fascinating stuff in the Scots mag, which is also like a slow travel expert. And she asks us this question.
Hi guys, now that summer's here, there's a lot more wild swimming going on. So I'd like to know what's your favourite loch, river or beach for a paddle in Scotland?
Thank you, Rebecca. You can get Rebecca on the socials at Rebecca on the Wing and get her every month in the Scots magazine. So the best duking spot. So I grew up, I've actually got softer, Coinneach. I used to be like the world's keenest water baby. Like I was just never out it. When I was wee, my mum would take me off the coast at Coinneach and she'd be like just swimming with other mums in the North Sea, all just chatting away, holding their babies, teaching me just to like stay afloat and things like that. That was in the early to mid 30s. And she got me right into it. And from a young age, I was always just happy like running into the sea, splashing about. But as I get older, I just like water to be a bit warmer. So the other day, I was just, well, in fact, no, this was about a week and a half ago. Me and my mate Stephen had been walking the Larrig Grew from Aviemore to Braemar through the hills. And it was a melting hot day. It was during that heat wave. We were scorched. We had to keep pausing to get more sun cream on, to get to cool down and things like that in the shade. And when we finally got to this place called the Linn O'Dee, the Linn O'Dee, the River Dee comes through this really narrow crevice, big water feature underneath a beautiful Victorian era bridge, and then it just spreads. The Dee just spreads right out into this nice deep swimming pool. We just dropped our bags, dropped our gear off, down to our pants and straight in, and just spent 10, 15, 20 minutes paddling about, and it was scorching. The water was balmy, and I just like, there was a dog on the bank that would come out and like swim out to us, sniff, swim back, swim out, sniff us, swim back. You were chatting to like, there was like families on the shore having a picnic and stuff. It was absolutely idyllic. And I would really recommend, so it's National Trust for Scotland managed that little area. It's about a 5-mile drive out of Braemar. So it's pretty accessible if you're fancying a day in the hills. You can park up there, you can picnic, you can duke. It's pretty safe as all these things go. Obviously, take your own precautions. But it was just, it put me in mind. It reminded me how much I love swimming in a river.
Remember we were chatting about our favourite drives in another one of the Q&As, and we talked about the Snow Road as well. So is it kind of close to that?
It is. So it's a place I go often with my tour groups. I'll take them up that way. But yeah, so the road through Braemar is one of the snow roads. It's one of the best. I think it's the best drive in Scotland. I had somebody DM me the other day or reply to a post when I was talking about driving through Braemar. And they were saying like how much nicer it is to drive from like Blairgowrie to Tomintoul over the snow roads than it is to drive around Skye or the North Coast 500, because it's a better road, so it's less scary to drive on. And there's just nobody there. There's no traffic. So you can just cruise. There's lots of places to pull in, to take in the view. It's a stunning place. And this spot, Linn O'Dee, is just 5 miles off the main track. And it's a beauty spot.
Yeah. I would say I'm not massively experienced in kind of wilder swimming, but my cousin, Colin MacLeod, one of the other C MacLeods on the island, he definitely is. He takes groups, he does a lot of wild swimming, and he took me swimming off the Brae, which is on Point, kind of like of Point on Lewis. And I think more than anything else, particularly on the islands, safety is very important. The seas are wild, the currents are strong, so there's lots of of sites. Make sure you choose a website that you can find good recommendations, and there's lots of them, or on social media. And find a place that you can be safe. And definitely the Braai, stopping at Babel on Pint on Lewis would be a great spot. So that's my
So one thing that's coming back to life quite a lot around Scotland are the old lidos, the old sort of down at the waterside. It's like pools with just the concrete outside walls, and when the sea comes in, it fills these pools, and you can get in for a duke. So there's one at Pit and Weem, which is a great swim on the East Nook of Fife, and there's another one at Cellar Dyke. But I also seen one that I'd never heard of up towards Wick. It was on a guy that I know we both follow. What's his human name? His handle is Scottish Man in a Van. Honeyman, David Honeyman, I want to say. Lovely, lovely guy. Great content. But he showed there's another Lido up there around Wick, which just looked like paradise. So I'd say if you're into duking spots, the Pit and Weem pool, the Cellar Dyke pool, these are just great. And there's one in Macduff that's being brought back to life. So I know people are getting more and more into that, and I'm going to commit this winter. I'm going to buy a wetsuit, and I'm going to get Mare into swimming in cold water. I'm going to stop being so soft.
And don't forget the Gourock outdoor swimming pool as well on the west coast. An absolute
yeah.
Wow.
Great shout. Yeah. So you put your big long arm into the big sack of questions, and what have you come up, Coinneach?
Well, I got a cracking question from Glasgow from Annie MacDonald. She said, now that Scotland are out of the World Cup, thanks for reminding us there, Annie, can we now all agree that the only tournament we've got a chance of winning is the World Porridge Making Championships?
Well, the Golden Spurtles. Now, Coinneach, I think I'm going to say this out loud, and I'm going to put it on the record. My life's goal is to one day host the Golden Spurtles.
Wow. Well, let me tell you all about it. For those of you who don't know and think we are making something up, it is a real and very serious championship. It's held in the beautiful village of Carbridge in the Highlands, in the Cairngorms. And the prize is the Golden Spurtle. Of course, the Spurtle, for those who don't know, is the kind of wooden stick. It's like a wooden spoon without a spoon in it, for stirring porridge, always clockwise, or the devil eat your porridge if you stir it anti-clockwise. And it's designed to keep the oats moving without encouraging lumps. But the competition itself, I think it started 1994, the World Porridge Making Championships, and really it was just a way to try and bring visitors to the area, out of season, because it's usually done in the kind of autumn time. I was fortunate enough to be invited to be a judge at the 2025 World Porridge Making Championships, and it is quite an experience, to say the least. So there are 30 competitors, hundreds, thousands of people apply to enter the World Porridge Making Championships, but 30 are allowed to enter 30 competitors. 14 countries were represented within that. There was entrants from Norway, Australia, Finland, Pakistan, the Philippines. It was absolutely phenomenal. 3 judges, myself, KJ Gilmore, and Neil Mugg. And it is... it's serious stuff. So there's 2 categories. There is the traditional category, and that is beautifully strict. It is just traditional porridge. Each get the same 3 ingredients: oatmeal, water, and salt. No milk, no cream, no honey, no cinnamons, no garnishes. And it's a blind competition, so we don't know whose bowl is who. You can choose between pinhead oats, coarse, medium fine oatmeal. You can't have rolled oats. That's in the rules.
Honestly, I couldn't be a judge on this, because I'd be like, yeah, that's delicious. Next bowl. That's also delicious. 5 stars for everyone.
It's fascinating because initially, of course, I was thinking 30 bowls of porridge, how am I going to differentiate between them? Every single bowl was different. it was fascinating because you're allowed to soak your oats in advance. There's different tactics. You can bring your own oats. You've only got 30 minutes to make it. So it sounds simple, but it is so difficult. So that's the first category. The second one is called the speciality category, and that's where the absolute madness begins. So every competitor needs to make an oat dish, but it can just be theatre. And we had some absolutely fascinating regional dishes. It was just a wonderful one. But back to the question, is this the only thing that Scottish people can win? Well, I've got something to tell everybody. We don't even win this either, unfortunately. The 2025 World Porridge Making Champion was Sven Sjeljon from Mandal in Norway. And he won the Golden Spurtle with a bowl of Norwegian black oats with a sea salt from home, and he even brought his own water with him as well. That's how devoted he was to the Norwegian oat cause. And I remember trying that bowl, and straight away it just stood out so well. I think it's 6 get through to a final round, then they remake the porridge again. So it was super impressive. Then the speciality prize, and I actually do think I cried when I tried this one.
You're listening to This Is Scotland. We'll be right back.
Ali, if you had to describe Scotland in one sound, what would it be?
For me, probably like the bird song, because wherever you are in Scotland, you got the distinct accompaniment of like seagulls down by the harbour, or moving inland, the songbirds of the forests, or right at the Highland plateaus, you get those really distinct rare birds that only live here. What about yourself?
For me, I'd say it's just hearing the stories and songs around Scotland.
And that's what Scotland's about, isn't it? It's a place of stories, people, places, history, food, music, and memories.
And for generations, the Scots magazine has been telling those stories, bringing Scotland into homes around the world.
So if Scotland means something to you,
bring it home.
Subscribe today at scotsmagazine.com and enjoy Scotland stories every month.
All the way from Australia, Caroline Velick, I think her name was, she made porridge jaffles, which it's sort of like a kind of flatbready kind of thing, made out of oats, but she had rum, bananas, and all these native Australian flavours. It was a taste sensation. The crowds, I mean, literally the hall is full. It's live streamed. The hall is full. There's people looking outside. There's lots of stuff going on in Carbridge that day. And if you can make it to Carbridge for the World Porridge Making Championships, as a contestant, as a host, as a judge, or just as a viewer, it is one of the most fun days out you will have, I promise.
I think we're actually sleeping on our own porridge heritage. I'm no surprised that we're no winning. When I was in Copenhagen recently, they had a chain, like a corporate Danish-owned chain of fast food porridge bars. Where, like an espresso bar in Italy, where you might go and perch at a bar and get a quick espresso, you perch up and you get a quick, healthy bowl of porridge. You can get fruit on it, you can get protein through it. I was like, how are we not doing this? Why are we still chomping a lorn? That's madness. Like, we have to. Scotland needs to up its game.
We totally.
What the hell? Like, so if we can't win if we can't win that, then what can we win? We need to, like, as curling, we've gone off the boil on curling. We've gone off the boil on porridge. We aren't winning the World Cup.
We've got to find something. You know, even I there should be a couple of footnotes here. I also entered the World Porridge Making Championships as a contestant a few years ago, and I came second. Very proud to be the second best porridge maker in the world that year. And for my speciality, I made a baked oat Alaska. So that classic 70s bake, but a honey and oat sponge, and pinhead oat brittle vanilla ice cream with the classic meringue on top. But I was pipped or pinhead at the post for that one. And really, this all came from, we all have different heroes in life. And probably my hero was that man on the porridge oats box. I used to gaze at him across the breakfast table, looking at this man. And I found out recently he is inspired by a real man. If you think of the man who he had the stone, he was tossing the stone and his kilt kind of waving in the background. He was inspired by Jay Scott, who was Highland Games heavyweight champion from Inchmurren Island on Loch Lomond, and he was famous kind of for his strength, and even seemingly had a dalliance with Hollywood starlet Jane Mansfield. So if that tells you anything, if you eat your porridge, anything can happen. Anything can happen.
That's funny. That is, okay. Into the big mailbag we go. This one comes from Kat Mackenzie, who I've met actually through work. Hello, Kat. Hope you're well. Thank you for your question. What time in Scottish history would you want to live a second life in? Open brackets, like Outlander, close brackets. So, for me, it's I always go to the 1700s. It's the era I know best. I'd love the whole Northeast then, when you're in this from the 1680s right the way through to the 1760s, 1770s. It's just this period of open rebellion where the culture is thriving. There's loads of smuggling going on. But the main caveat I want to introduce in the start of this is I would want to go to my doctors and get every single injection for infectious disease. And I'd also want to take some sort of invincibility pill. So when I head back, I can't just get beaten up and then die. Because I think that would happen so quickly. But I think, to be honest, the 1700s, I feel like you could sort of imagine what that'd be like. There'd be this really interesting blend of Scots and Gaelic being spoken. You'd be at this kind of middle ground where everyone's cutting about barefoot, but they're all reading really fascinating international books, and the agricultural industrial revolutions are starting to kick into gear. It's comprehensible. But the era that used to be known as the Dark Ages, that might be the place to go and look, because it is the period from sort of 500 AD through to 900 AD when the Picts in the East Coast and across Scotland actually are at their peak. Their artistic, creative peak. They're just before they're converted to Christianity. What are the beliefs? What are those symbols on the stones? The Picts carved all these standing stones that are still out in the landscape with these really enigmatic shapes on them. What did they mean? What did they represent? Were the Picts, they've been interpreted sometimes as warriors, at times as barbarians, at times as artists. What were they all about? What was everyday life like? We know so little about Picts at all, but we know nothing about Pictish women and very little about Pictish children. We have a couple of little games and things that maybe were played, get a little sense of childhood there. But I think the Pictish era is like the Mariana Trench of Scottish history. It's like this strangely unknowable era because we have only archaeology, which tells us only so much. But we know they had big towns, like Gordon Noble and other researchers from Aberdeen University have uncovered big towns of hundreds and hundreds of houses in the rural northeast. I'd love to go and hang about with these guys, but again, I think they would batter me, so I would need to be protected. Either you got to come with me and speak up for me, Coinneach, or I've got to have some sort of invulnerability pill, or go through a 6-month cage fighting training camp before you send me back through the big portal. That'd be mine. What do you reckon yourself, Coinneach? What if you had to go back to one era?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I'm wondering if I've sort of chosen a similar idea to you, and one that I know you're very passionate about as well. But I was thinking of that moment when Bonnie Prince Charlie landed on Ediskay. So we're talking July kind of 1745, and that journey from there to Glenfinnan. When he kind of raised the Jacobite standard and kind of called the clans to his cause. That few weeks between arriving in Ediskey and that travelling over to Glenfinnan. I'm just trying to imagine what it'd be like to travel together with Bonnie Prince Charlie, the plans that were made on the way, what he thought could happen, how he thought the country would change by what his plans were. I mean, what do you think about that era? Wouldn't that have been just a fascinating moment in time, just the energy that came from this potential change?
I think it'd be incredible because he did have a reputation. He had a Gaelic tutor. He spoke broad Scots as well as a number of other languages. He famously marched with his troops through the landscape. And like you say, the buzz would have been cracking. Like you see the Tartan Army in Boston. Imagine that but tenfold. Because you are talking about like a really culturally rich area. The confidence would have been oozing out of them. And I just think he sounds like such a charismatic leader. And it would also be, again, that moment to just chat to folk in the Northeast and in the Highlands. What is motivating you to come out? Historians are still so divided. Was it... Because the propaganda songs are a lot of them are just like anti-English. Like, this is a Scotland versus England thing. Stand up for Scotland. Like Bruce, like Wallace at Bannockburn, at Stirling, at Falkirk. Stand up for Scotland. Stand up against English overlordship. And then you have other songs which are much more muted and much more talk about like sort of religious freedom and things like that. Are people or like some people that were arrested and executed for their part in the Jacobite risings just said like we were starving. We were starving, so we had to fight because something had to change. So just getting to walk alongside these people and find out what was motivating them. Like there's that sword in Edinburgh Castle, Edinburgh Museum rather, the National Museum of Scotland. One of the things that's inscribed on the sword blade is no union. So it's this thing of these are barefoot, like semi-illiterate people, but they've got a very clear political identity and political motivations. I'd love to be in amongst them. Yeah. I take it back. I don't care about the Picts and their bumping rocks together in their hill forts, trying to beat me up like they probably would have. Let me get a nice big Philibeg on and march with the Jacobites, because so many Jacobites obviously marched down to Derby with Bonnie Prince Charlie, but like 4,000 of them stayed back as the guard to guard Scotland. That'd be me.
Okay,
I'm not going down with it. Yeah. I'm not going down near the front. But that's a great question. Thank you very much for it, Cat Mackenzie.
It's a great question, and I was thinking actually, could this be the time for a BBC Scotland version of Doctor Who? Ali as the Doctor, me as his trusted assistant in the TARDIS. I don't know what our TARDIS would be. I'd have to think about that. Heading through history. BBC Scotland, we are ready for this now if you need us. Wouldn't you say, Ali?
If you get your own way, the TARDIS is going to be like a great big box of Hebridean Baker shortbread that we climb into every time. There's no way you're missing that branding opportunity.
We can pop at the top of it, see where we are. I love that question. I love that question. But I've got one here as well. This could make probably our last one of the day. This is quite a thought-provoking one for me in a way. But it was from Danny Fisher over in Newport, Rhode Island, which I've been to. What a beautiful town that is.
Right.
Which is written, is it just me or are Highland cows having their moment? Every tourism campaign for Scotland just now seems to have a big hairy coup in it, and she's written in brackets, P.S. I'm not complaining. And I think she's right, actually. They're absolutely having their moment, and I think this last few years Highland cows have become Scotland's kind of unofficial influencers. I don't know if it's the dramatic horns, the beautiful eyelashes. You can never get a bad angle on a Highland cow photo, but if you can put one in a field with a little bit of mist behind you, you've got everybody booking their flights to Inverness or wherever to come and see this. So I think it's interesting because I started to reflect from that to what other things we have used, or the things that have been used to sell this country to the world in the past. I don't know about you, Ali. I love the maybe some of the irony, but the interest over these old railway posters, those classic kind of 1920s, 30s, where Scotland was presented maybe in a very kind of Victorian way. It was very magnificent and romantic and that kind of slightly unreachable kind of thing where it's all stags and mountainsides and castles above lochs and golfers at Gleneagles and pipers at Highland Games or the Forth Road Bridge. There has been these moments in time where be it a stag or a castle or something has been the figure or face of Scotland. And actually in the 1930s there was a railway poster literally called The Face of Scotland, and it had a loch, a castle and a mountain. That was what everybody wanted to see in Scotland. There was no Glasgow nightlife, there was no Dundee design scene or queuing outside a bakery for a morning roll. It was a very handsome place,
Yeah.
Have you seen this, Ali, this kind of change of how the country has been sold over this, maybe if we say 100 years, I guess?
Yeah, I think if you dip back a little further into the oil paintings of the 1870s, you really see the Highland coups had their moment then. And I think, so what you see a lot is hinds, as they're called, sort of like farmhands, in rustic gear, in these beautiful scenes with Highland cows often in the mist. And actually, we are right back there now. So that was, I think, 1860s, 1870s. You really see that style of painting. And I think it's because the Highland cow with the big horns is more related to the orach. It's that idea of, so that's the original cow thing that we bred these animals out of. They were a forest creature. They were bigger, hairier, larger horns, and they lived wild in the North Atlantic archipelago that we live on today. And I think there's something that speaks to what people want Scotland to be and expect it to be, which is a little less refined, a little rougher, a little bit of a step back in time to a slightly different and more mysterious age. Whereas your English cows, your American cows, they're bred to the nth degree. They are completely unrelated to nature. You find them only in these great big parks. You find them in sort of industrialised farm settings. And you come to Scotland and it's just this older creature that's much less tampered with by humans, and they tend to be in much wilder scenery. And I think it is that portal where it's like a cow we can all recognise and all relate to, but this one is just different and older and a bit more mysterious. And I think that's why people love Scotland and find it such a place to visit, because we are just in touch with something more ancient. And I think that's why the cow is actually quite a good symbol.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think they're a really clever tourism ambassador. They're ancient looking, but they're friendly. They're dramatic in a photo, but they're not. Well, they are quite intimidating. We have 7 Highland cows, and I know one day they're going to eat me or do something to me. I don't know, but they are unmistakably Scottish. Even if you see them in a different country, people still think of those as Scotland. They don't need any explanation, no translation. People see them and go, I'm now in Scotland. I mean, there's been other animals as well when you think of the black and white whiskey adverts, the terrier, the Scottie and the Westie, that was a very popular kind of moment. But I think just now the Highland coo is definitely having its moment. And, enjoy them. Buy a tea towel with them on it. Just be careful. Always admire them from the other side of the fence. They might look like teddy bears, but they are very much large and in charge. So just be careful if you see them. But they are wonderful and, yes, very proud ambassadors. And we love having them on our croft. They're just wonderful beasts. They absolutely are. So,
I've not been out, actually. So, Coinneach, I will come out soon and get to meet your coos. And I'll get a wee visit with them, and we'll post about it on our socials. So folk can obviously book in and visit your coos, and I will come out myself and visit your coos. But follow me, historic_Ali. Follow Big Coinneach
at Hebridean Baker on Instagram, and they were great questions. Wasn't that absolutely fantastic? And already excited about our next episode of the podcast coming up next Monday as well.
Yes. So we didn't get through. Like, I had a couple more I was hoping to get through, but we're just out of time. So next week we'll get through. Like, one of the ones I want to answer is a question: where are the Highlands? Because this has always been a topic of debate in my house.
Shall we do this one now, Ali? Shall we? Yeah,
no. I think let's save it. Let's keep our powder dry. Let's get our maps out. Let's get our arguments together, and let's meet again in a week's time for the next Q&A to answer that burning question. So share this podcast with your friends. Make sure to subscribe to it. Share it as wide and as far as you can. And again, keep your questions coming in and listen to the next podcast, which is out on Monday morning.
We'll see you then.
Cheerio, Drasta.